No matter what the Sussexes or Cambridges do, there's always this feeling of competition, whether they like it or not. And this is a very interesting insight about human behavior that can help you to not be compared to others. Welcome back, my body language buddies. My name is Jesus Enrique Rosas. I'm the body language guy, and it would be great if you join us by just liking this video, subscribing, and hitting that bell. Let's get down to it. Who was the first one to get into a podcast? Who is copying the other fashion statements? Who is working the hardest? These kind of questions plague over and over again the headlines of our favorite real-life reality show. And this is regardless you're a Sussex fan or a Cambridge fan. Most probably you'd say that there's absolutely no comparison between them, especially because we already know that Meghan is the greatest heroine since Joan of Arc. But seriously speaking, this is something that I noticed with the BBC's documentary The Princess and the Press. Even if it's highly biased, and we already know the reputation of the chap behind it, it states a very real controversy. The question that if someone deserves or not to be compared to others. And this is a very abstract concept that might be difficult to picture in your head. Pretty much like how Spotify executives try to make sense of whatever the Sussexes sign up for. But a very easy way to understand it is recalling every time you were compared to your brothers or your sisters or your schoolmates or your colleagues. In fact, you were heavily programmed about that at school, where your performance determined who was the first of the class. And just like that, we can jump to the easiest comparison in the British royals. William versus Harry. This is something that you cannot escape just because they are brothers. People will always need to measure who's the most charismatic, or who's the most hardworking, or who's the best lambada dancer. These comparisons happen because of how our brain works. I've told you many times that our brains are energy hogs that need to be cutting corners at all times just to save fuel. And one of the ways we do that automatically is trying to fit everything into categories. And the easiest way to understand this is referring to Aristotle's categories. And one of those Aristotelian categories is called being in a position. So this category, being in a position, helps classify William and Harry as brothers. They are both the sons of Charles and Diana, despite all the conspiracy theories that might be running out there. Just by being part of the same category, something that our brain does automatically just to function, we end up making comparisons between them. Of course, that's unfair because we are trying to cram two absolutely different personalities on the same block. But that Aristotelian category of being in a position at the same time helps make a huge contrast between the Windsor brothers. Because one is in the position of being the heir to the British throne and the other is the spare. It's basically a black and white comparison in the sense that they really cannot be compared. But Jesus, I can imagine you asking, if the same category makes us compare them unfairly and at the same time differentiate them logically, why do we insist in picking the wrong comparison? And to answer that question, we're going to switch to Catherine and Meghan. If I ask you, which categories do you think would be similar for Catherine and Meghan to fit in? Which could be a fair comparison? Well, the easiest one would be that they are commoners married into the royal family. That's a category where they both fit in. And you might have the notion that this is a fair category, just for the fact that entering that category was a decision that both of them did on purpose. They were not forced into it, even if one of them planned it for much longer time. That is, having vision. But that same category of joining the royal family generates a very big gap between them because one of them did everything that was in her power to integrate herself into the firm and the other did the exact opposite with Megxit. So this is a similar situation like the one with the brothers. You can think of the same category in a way that unites them under the same umbrella or the same tribe, and at the same time it is the source of a complete separation between them. And the big difference is how you, the spectator, perceives them. You might drool over William, or might admire Meghan's drive for world domination, or might applaud Kate's charisma cannon, and I, for one, really want to climb the rope just like Harry does. As soon as I'm finishing this video, I'll be hitting the gym. Now let's put you in the equation. You can role-play thinking that you're part of the royal family, or you can just think about the way you've been compared to others, your siblings, your schoolmates, your co-workers, etc. I'm willing to bet that most of the time you did not feel comfortable at all with those comparisons. Maybe you had better grades, but your sibling was more charismatic, or you're more efficient at your job and you've got a colleague that better navigates office politics. Sometimes those comparisons will benefit you, but most of the time you're going to get the sharp end of the stick. And we come full circle to the term deserving it. Do you deserve to be unfairly compared to others? Of course not. But this is a huge source of anxiety and a major mental health hazard nowadays, and social media, especially video and image-based social media such as Instagram or TikTok, have a huge play on it. Because one thing is comparing Kate, Meghan, and Diana in the green dress category. A category that, if you Google famous green dress, the ultimate winner is J-Lo. But a vastly different thing is comparing yourself to total strangers in the way you dress, the way you look, apparent success, apparent charisma, and even worse if someone else compares you to them. And I know, it's something natural. You cannot help but compare yourself. Measure yourself to others to have an idea of how are you doing, and we do this subconsciously, automatically, because that was a survival skill that we used many thousands of years ago. We were nomads, and your ability to survive was largely measured on how you fare against the others. For example, if they had more resistance walking, you had no other option but to push harder, because if you didn't, you will be eaten alive. Well, things haven't changed that much, because today you could get eaten alive by tabloids. But survival has changed a lot since then, but our brains are still hardwired like this. And this is what's important about this phenomenon. In the same way you feel that it's unfair to compare William to Harry, brothers to brothers, heirs to spares, or compare the bomb-cradling frequency of Meghan versus Kate, these comparisons always happen in third-person's minds. We are watching the royals in third-person view, and that's why we pick our favorites. Now, the exercise that I want you to do on yourself is that the next time you start to compare yourself to another person or to a group of persons is look at you in third person, like your astral body looking at yourself from the top of the room. And this is very important. I want you to pick yourself as your favorite, just because you're unique and there's no way of comparing you to anyone else. Well, that must be the reason why those ginger conspiracies are so strong. That red hair looks like no one else in that family. Well, let's be honest. We will never stop comparing Cambridges to Sussexes, which is sort of comparing apples to slightly rotten apples. But now you know that this happens because our brains are hardwired into doing it. So you have the knowledge of appreciating yourself in the third person, appreciating your own value and realizing that your personality and character mix is beautifully unique. And if there comes the day that you have no other option but to compare yourself to others, you can always pick the category that suits you best. If you want to refine your observation skills, all you have to do is download my 100 body language tips right in the description of this video. My name is Jesus Enrique Rosas, and it will always be a pleasure, my body language buddies. Much love and bliss.